Chosen one, do not scroll. Stay here. Do not rush this moment, because what I am about to say is something you have been waiting to hear for a long time. It has been building quietly, behind the scenes, in conversations you were not part of, in doors that closed without explanation, in people who slowly changed toward you. You thought it was random. You thought maybe you did something wrong. You questioned yourself. You replayed situations. You wondered if you were too much or not enough. But listen carefully. Nothing about what happened to you was accidental. Nothing about the distance was meaningless. Nothing about the delay was wasted. You were being repositioned. You were being redirected. You were being refined. There were environments that could not stretch with your growth. There were people who liked the old version of you, but felt uncomfortable around the evolving version. There were opportunities that looked good, but would have capped your potential. So they were removed. Not to hurt you, to protect you. You felt the shift. You noticed conversations becoming shorter, energy becoming colder, rooms feeling different when you walked in. And instead of blaming them, you blamed yourself. But chosen ones often outgrow spaces before they understand why. Elevation feels like isolation at first. Growth feels like loss. Alignment feels like abandonment. Because when you are being prepared for something greater, you are separated from what is average. And average feels safe. But you were never meant for safe. You asked for growth. You prayed for expansion. You wanted something greater than routine. But greatness requires detachment. You cannot carry everything into your next level. Some connections were seasonal. Some opportunities were tests. Some delays were divine timing adjustments. You thought you were falling behind, but you were being built beneath the surface. Deep foundations are laid in silence. While others were moving loudly, you were strengthening quietly. While others were celebrating quickly, you were being disciplined deeply. You were not overlooked. You were being prepared. There were lessons you had to learn privately, boundaries you had to build internally, confidence that had to grow without applause. You were trained in silence, and silence is uncomfortable. Because silence forces reflection. Reflection forces growth. Growth forces separation. And separation feels lonely. But lonely does not mean lost. It means lifted. You have been lifted into a different awareness. You see through intentions now. You feel shifts in energy faster. You notice inconsistencies quicker. That sensitivity is not weakness. It is discernment sharpening. And discernment protects destiny. There were relationships that would have drained you long term. There were environments that would have kept you small. There were paths that looked easier but would have made you dependent instead of developed. So, they ended, not because you failed, because you were chosen for more. You have felt pressure, heavy pressure, responsibility increasing, expectations rising, internal standards elevating. You are no longer comfortable with chaos. You no longer tolerate confusion. You no longer entertain inconsistency. And that change disturbed some people, because not everyone benefits from your growth. Some benefited from your insecurity. Some benefited from your availability. Some benefited from your silence. But now, you speak differently. You move differently. You choose differently. And that shift changed everything. Chosen one, it is time to tell you everything. You were never behind. You were never forgotten. You were never unlucky. You were in transition. Transition is uncomfortable because it sits between chapters. You cannot go back. but you cannot yet see forward clearly, so it feels uncertain. But uncertainty does not mean instability. It means preparation is still happening. There were things hidden from you on purpose, information delayed for your protection, truths revealed slowly so you could handle them. Because if everything had been shown at once, it would have overwhelmed you. Your capacity has grown. Your emotional control has strengthened. Your reactions have slowed. You pause before responding now. You observe instead of assuming. You think long-term instead of reacting short-term. That maturity is not random. It was built. Built through disappointment. Built through betrayal. Built through silence. Built through waiting. And waiting refines desire. You no longer want attention. You want alignment. You no longer want fast results. You want stable outcomes. You no longer want chaos disguised as excitement. You want peace that lasts. That shift is confirmation. You are ready for the next chapter. But readiness requires release. And some of what left your life had to leave. Even if you loved it, even if you invested in it, even if you believed in it. Because destiny cannot be negotiated. It can only be aligned with. You were aligned away from distractions. You were aligned away from limitations. You were aligned toward expansion. And expansion often begins with subtraction. You lost access to certain people. You lost comfort in certain spaces. You lost interest in certain conversations. But what you lost externally, you gained internally. Clarity, strength, discipline, boundaries, perspective. You are not the same person you were a year ago. You are quieter, but more powerful. You are calmer, but more decisive. You are slower to trust, but quicker to discern. That transformation did not happen randomly. It happened intentionally. You are being shaped for something that requires stability, something that requires emotional maturity, something that requires leadership. Leadership is not loud, it is steady, and you are becoming steady. Steady in thought, steady in emotion, steady in direction. That steadiness is your confirmation. It is time to tell you everything. The separation was necessary. The silence was strategic. The delay was protection. And what is coming will not require you to chase. It will align naturally, because you are no longer desperate. You are prepared, and prepared people recognize opportunity when it arrives. This is not the end of your story. This was the transition between chapters. Stay grounded, stay observant, stay disciplined. Because what is being positioned now will require the version of you that survived the last season. And you did survive it. You did not collapse. You did not harden. You did not give up. You grew. And growth always comes before revelation. This was preparation. And preparation always precedes expansion. Chosen one? Now listen carefully, because this is where everything becomes clear. You survived the separation. You survived the silence. You survived the confusion. But what you did not realize was that the storm was not there to destroy you. It was there to introduce you to yourself. There were moments you almost broke. Moments you almost reached out to what you knew was not aligned. Moments you almost lowered your standards just to feel connected again. But you didn't. You stayed disciplined, even when it hurt. Even when it was lonely. Even when nobody clapped for your strength. That restraint changed your timeline. That self-control protected your future. You thought you were just enduring, but you were being elevated. Elevation does not always feel like flying. Sometimes it feels like falling, because falling removes what you were holding on to. You were holding on to old identities, old attachments, old expectations, old narratives about who you thought you were supposed to be. And those had to collapse, because the next version of you cannot carry the old mindset. You were being rewired, your patience stretched, your discernment sharpened, your emotional reactions slowed. You started thinking long-term. You stopped responding instantly. You stopped chasing explanations. You stopped forcing conversations. That calm shift was the sign. You are no longer operating from insecurity. You are operating from awareness, and awareness changes everything. There were truths you weren't ready to see before, about certain people, about certain patterns, about yourself. But now you see clearly. You see who drains you. You see who competes with you. You see who celebrates you quietly but envies you internally. And instead of reacting, you detach. That detachment is maturity. You are not cold. You are calibrated. Chosen one. Everything that felt like it was ending was actually clearing space. You were being moved into a higher alignment, higher standards, higher expectations, higher access. Access requires responsibility. Responsibility requires discipline. And discipline requires separation from distraction. The distraction phase is over. You feel it. You are not as easily impressed anymore. You are not as easily triggered anymore. You are not as easily manipulated anymore. That growth shifted your energy. And when your energy shifts, your environment eventually follows. You will begin noticing something. Opportunities arriving without chaos. Conversations feeling more aligned. Doors opening without you forcing them. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Because you are no longer operating from desperation. You are operating from readiness. Readiness attracts stability. Stability attracts opportunity. Opportunity attracts expansion. And expansion is what this entire season was building toward. The weight you carried built muscle. The silence you endured built clarity. The waiting you survived built endurance. And endurance builds authority. Authority is quiet confidence, not loud ego, not performative strength. Quiet certainty. And you have developed certainty. You no longer beg to be understood. You no longer over-explain yourself. You no longer try to convince people to stay. You allow alignment to happen naturally. That is power. The truth you've been waiting for is this. You were not losing people. You were losing limitations. You were not falling behind. You were being positioned ahead. You were not forgotten. You were being prepared privately. Public reward follows private refinement, and your refinement phase is almost complete. The next chapter will not look dramatic. It will look stable, peaceful, structured, intentional. Because chaos was never your destiny. Growth was, and growth requires discomfort first. But now you are different. Stronger, calmer, more strategic, less reactive, more observant, less emotional in decisions, more intentional in movement. That shift alone changed your future. The version of you from last year would not have handled what is coming. But this version will, because this version is disciplined. This version is grounded. This version understands value, and value must be protected. So move carefully now. Do not overshare your plans. Do not announce your next move prematurely. Protect your momentum. Protect your clarity. Protect your peace. Because what is aligning next will require emotional stability. And you have earned that stability. You survived the cost. Now you are stepping into the reward. But reward is not noise. Reward is access. Access to better rooms, better conversations, better partnerships, better timing. The difference now is you won't rush it, you won't chase it. You will recognize it. And recognition is wisdom. Before this message ends, pause. Think about the last season. Think about the nights you stayed strong alone. Think about the moments you chose discipline over comfort. Think about how different your mindset is now. You are not who you were, and that is the point. If something inside you felt calm while listening, if something inside you felt seen, if something inside you whispered, "This is true," then sit with that, not for validation, but for awareness. And when this ends, leave one word in the comments that represents what this last season taught you. Not to impress anyone, but to acknowledge your growth. Because chosen does not mean easy, it means entrusted. And you have been entrusted with more